God, where are the lost? He said, if you're the lost, you have to go get them. And so I learned you had to do that. But all of that was part of the process. Well, how do you get the lost? So, radio. Now, this is part of the process. Everybody say process. And now you will say, well, you hadn't been to Bible school. You're right. I was a school teacher. I did take Greek, but, I'm not very good with it. Sarah's really good with Greek and Hebrew. I'm not. And so, I was in a process because these people would come and get saved. They began to get spirit-filled, began to come up to our church, and then they said to me, we could get more people if you would go on the radio. Radio? Well, how could I afford it? So I went to my husband, and my husband said, I'm fine if you go on the radio, but it's your baby, you feed it. He said, why can't those Bible studies pay for it? Well, I said, it's $60 a month. He said, honey, you got to have faith. So I went to the Bible studies and put me on. And so I had 5 minutes every week. That was very wonderful. But we began to have a lot of response. Now, what's going on? I'm practicing. Everybody say practicing. And I taught Sunday school in our church. I taught these Bible studies, and I was practicing. Now, let me tell you, when you're practicing, not everybody's encouraging. And I remember, and my husband was very encouraging. He was 100. He just didn't pay for it. But I remember an evangelist that we liked so well that was from Wales came to our church, and he said, of all the pastors' wives I know, you're the least prosperous and the least successful. I said, why? He said, well, you don't play the piano or organ. I said, that would really be unsuccessful. He said, you don't have the women's missionary thing. You don't roll bandages and make quilts. All you do are their silly little home Bible studies. And so I want to tell you, when you're in the practice, not everybody is going to be encouraging. Are you hearing me? And so, especially your relatives. So I lived in Sewickley, Pennsylvania, and I had a wonderful aunt. And so when my husband and I started a church, she was very embarrassed. She wouldn't even tell her friends that I was in the ministry. They'd say, well, Marilyn, what are you doing? Oh, they just do a little church thing, that's all. And she said to me, you could have made something with your life, but you've just thrown it away. No, I caught it, And so your relatives don't always understand, but you don't give up, right? Look at someone and say, honey, you don't know how to give up. Okay. So here he is. He's taking care of the estate. And he's a very good organizer. And he's doing very, very well. But his brothers became very jealous. As I said, many times our relatives do not understand. And so the father really recognized him and recognized he had ability, and he gave him a many-colored coat, which showed that he has authority. So, he's next to the youngest, and they didn't want him having authority over them. And they knew about those dreams. So one day, they were out working in the fields, and the father said to Joseph, I want you to go and tell the brothers, that what they are supposed to do. And here he is, he's been practicing on his father's estate, and he gets by his brothers, and by the way, they grabbed the coat, and they put blood on it and lied to the father, said an animal had killed him. And so he gets to Egypt. Now, watch yourself, because while you're practicing, you could get bitter at some of the comments, and you could get unhappy with some of the things people say, right? And so he could have said, dear God, where are you? Here I am up here in Egypt. I'm a slave. My father probably thinks I'm dead, and, forget it, hang it up. But he didn't. He practiced. Everybody say practice. And so in this timing of God talking to me, I thought, I'd like to go on television, because I think if I had a Monday morning program, because Oral Roberts had one and one of our pastors did, this could be a good thing for our church. It could help it grow. We could win more lost. So I went to Channel 9 Secular Studio to see if they would put me on. And so they had me meet with their board, and there were 9 men. And these 9 men looked at me and they said, "You're not television material. You would never make it. You better stay with the radio." Now, folks, I've only been on television 45 years. And none of those men are on television. Hey, God thinks you can do anything. Hold on to your dreams. Everybody say, hold on. Don't let go. So one man stood up and he said, "I think we ought to try her. I think she'll pay her bill." And so I did for 8 years. But in this timing, the radio was beginning to grow. And we syndicated the radio. And the radio was really a blessing to me. And I loved radio, and I loved the people that it reaches and the response of it. And, I didn't have a lot of money or a lot of anything. And if you knew where I did my radio tapes, I did them in a closet in the basement of our house. And, one time a cricket was down there, and right in the middle of the tape, the cricket went chirp, and I had to start over. And then it chirped again. And so finally I just gave up and thought, put a chirp on for many years. And the chirp really encouraged me. So these are things in the process. Everybody say process. So what did Joseph do? He practiced. Now remember, every new situation you get into, you practice in, is developing you. Because God doesn't waste anything. He doesn't waste anything. And so he's practiced. He really knew how to organize people. And so Potiphar is quite impressed with him, but so is Potiphar's wife. And she tries to seduce him. And later I'll tell you about his words, because your words in this time are very important, what you speak. So he told her, "No,